Good evening, this is Jack from Charting Markets, and this is the Bigger Picture webinar for the evening of Sunday, the 10th of August. My disclaimer, this is for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some of what I'm doing, learn from it, transfer it to your own charts. I'm not here to issue trading signals. Right, this is a video for, this is not yet a video for paying subscribers because I haven't got all the paperwork out yet. But, okay, hoping to get that out tomorrow or Tuesday, or we will see. I love charting. I'm not so hot on paperwork. All right, great. Let's have a look at markets. Okay, ES and NQ. Actually, because we broke over the daily middle bands and confirmed on both, I've been looking for a retest of the all-time highs on both. Now, we haven't seen that on either yet, but we have seen it on Qs. On the Qs. We haven't quite seen it on the futures, but I don't think they're going to be that far behind. We haven't made it on either as yet on ES. This could potentially be a double top here, but I'm not seeing much sign to suggest that it is. Although we do, sorry, this is the overnights that we're looking at here, so this is live. We do have now a possible 60-minute sell signal brewing here, but I'm not really holding my breath waiting for anything to happen. What is interesting, though, is that while we have broken over both of those on SPX and the Qs, we haven't yet broken over the daily middle band on either IWM or DIA. So that is interesting. We do have a little level top which is broken down on RTY. I'm not that impressed with the prospects of actually getting all the way down to the target here in the 2174 area, but the possibility is there. And we got a possible double top, arguably, but it's not really a good pattern for anything, so I haven't marked in the arrows. These could catch up and start breaking over their daily middle bands, but at the moment they haven't. And there remains a possibility, while that is the case, that we might go and do the retest of the all-time highs on SPX and the Qs, and then actually everything turns down together. As these two, which have been the weakest, the weaker of the four US indices, never actually make it back over the daily middle band. Too early to call that, but it is a possibility worth considering. All right, DAX and STX, some decent moves up here, some distance away from retest of the high. Trying to get over the monthly pivot on ESTX, and that's more successful, but still in progress on DAX. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. Okay, looking at SPX first, well, ES first. Obviously, we've seen a solid break back over the daily middle band. We've seen a strong confirmation, and we made it within 42 handles of a retest to the high. I think it's a little closer on SPX. Yeah, we made the high was 63.95, so that's basically 32 handles away. I think that's doable, and I think that is definitely the obvious next target. Looking at the hourly chart, could be forming a double top here. If we were to see, and this is what my last post was about, talking about the three trend lines, this is one of those trend lines. And as you can see, it's not actually an awfully large amount above. It's probably in about the 63.60 area, that trend line there, if we go and hit it. Again, if we do actually start seeing DIA particularly breaking back over the daily middle band, I'd be wondering about reaching that trend line. All right, looking at the Qs, Qs, we actually made it up to, I think the previous high was 574.63, and we made it up to 574.77. Very marginal high, but nonetheless a higher high. On NDX, we made it to. So looking pretty good. I'd expect the futures to catch up on that. In terms of, obviously we've got a potential level top here, but this is the second trend line on the Qs here, and I've got that up in about the 580, 581 area if we go and get it. Not a lot on the 15-minute charts. There's a couple of 15-minute sell signals. We may find those play out with a bit of a retracement tomorrow. Looking at DIA, the daily middle band closed at 443.64, and we were a couple of points below it. We've still got, obviously, an RSI 14 sell signal fixed here, and I think we've got one on IW as well. Nothing really to say on the 60-minute chart. This could be, of course, a bull flag forming from this high here at 450.25, waiting to see if that delivers. Nothing really on the 15-minute chart. Let's have a look at the bigger picture IWM chart, and we've got, hang on one second. Right. On the daily chart, we've got all new weekly pivots, of course. On the daily chart, we had the daily middle band closed at 221.63, and again, that was another close below it. We've got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed there too. Obviously, this has been holding a while. I had thought that once SPX and the Qs broke over, then these would follow, but maybe they're not going to. If they don't, then that sets up an interesting possibility that the others retest the highs as expected and then turn down there, while, of course, these turn down to the existing double top targets, which are still valid. On the hourly chart, really nothing to see. Not much to see on the 15-minute chart either. I have drawn in a potential overall bull flag forming here, but as yet it is tentative. On DAX, back above the daily middle band, which is encouraging for seeing a retest of the high. On Nikkei, we almost made it up. We almost made it up back to 42.1k. I am thinking we might see a retest of 42.4k within days. All right, let's have a look at the DX chart. Now, DX, we've not seen a great deal happening in the last couple of days. I do have a falling wedge here that could be breaking up, or this could just be a bearish consolidation or a bear flag forming before we head down to this double top target, which is in the 96.85 area. Looking at the other currencies, USD, we've got the same looking wedge, 6-minute sell signal that's fixed, hasn't really delivered anything. GBP USD, 60-minute sell signal fixed. USD JPY, 60-minute sell signals reached the possible near miss target. USD CAD, same wedge, and wondering about that possibly breaking up. Australian dollar, we had a double bottom here that made target, no current divergence, and NZUSD has broken up from an IHS with a target in about the 60.005 area, I think. So we'll see whether that makes target. All right, great. In that case, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. Okay, looking at the US dollar first, obviously we've got no divergence on the daily chart here. We've either got an IHS which is broken up with a target at the 101.5 area, or alternatively, I'm looking at a possible rising megaphone here, which could, of course, be a bear flag. The level where that gets interesting is down here at about the 97.6 area. If we see a break, if we see a test of that, it confirms the megaphone. If we see a break below it, then it is the start of a break, which will probably take us down into a retest of the low here at 96.38, and that would fail the IHS on a break below 97.11 and set up a potential double bottom. Looking at USD, obviously I'm still wondering about the big flag on US dollar, and it still looks really nice, and we're still holding this rising support trend line. I would note that if we do go and see a full retest of 96.38, then we will probably see a break of this trend line, which is one reason I was thinking that wasn't probably going to happen. USD, we've still got a nice looking bear flag. GBP USD, we've still got a nice looking bear flag. Shorter term on the euro, no current divergence. Waiting to see how it breaks. GBP USD, just broke over this little declining resistance, but I don't think that's necessarily significant. We have also got a head and shoulders here, which is broken down with a target in the 1.29 area. It is in no danger of failing at the moment. USD JPY, possible head and shoulders forming, but it wouldn't be particularly good quality. USD CAD, we've got a possible little IHS here, and this actually wouldn't be bad quality. So we'd be forming the right shoulder at the moment, and then that would head up, presumably, with the dollar. The Australian dollar, nothing really obvious forming. NZUSD, we've got a possible level top trying to break down here. Now, one of the problems we've got here, I mean, obviously, this is a very random administration. That's not inspiring a lot of confidence. Trump's just fired his head statistics person and put in a political guy, and that's really not going to improve confidence in US figures, which have generally speaking been seen as very good. But obviously, if they're just taking orders as to what figures to present, then they're kind of more like Russia's statistic agency, and that's not going to improve confidence. Now, the thing is, the dollar is a reserve currency. That reserve currency is held by a lot of countries because they have confidence in the stability of the dollar. Trump is undermining that with everything he does, and that's just a simple fact. the whole, all this Truth Social stuff about, attacking all those political enemies, and they've all got investigations started. Department of Justice is completely politicized. This is not anything which inspires any confidence. So the thing is, what's going to happen with the dollar? The pattern set up here is suggesting strongly that we see a retest of the high here at 114.76. The actions of the administration may well prevent that happening and may mean this breaks down and we start seeing a breakdown in the value of the dollar. That I don't think the thing is, I'm disappointed. I am thinking that we're probably going to see a crisis, particularly on bonds, within a few months, but I'm rather hoping that can wait till next year. If the administration is incompetent and corrupt enough to lose confidence a lot more quickly than that, then obviously that could disrupt that schedule. But at the moment, the market's trying to deliver it. So I'm keeping an open mind. At the moment, this is still looking like a bull flag. We would break up, we'd retest this high, set up a double top, and then we would see the big decline. Can we wait that long? I don't know. Certainly, I'm watching the administration at work, and I'm really wondering whether it can last that long. It's there's an awful lot of people who've got an awful lot of money in the US dollar and US treasuries, and this really isn't inspiring any confidence. I know, some of you may be passionate Trump supporters who don't like hearing that, but that's just the simple reality. Sometimes, well, I think it's my job to tell you, if the emperor actually has no clothes, and this emperor really has no clothes, the whole tariffs thing's been more of a game show than economic policy. It's every victory has been a victory for the right of the American people to pay large amounts of extra taxes that they're being told they won't need to pay, because it'll be paid by foreigners, but it won't be. Billions won't be, trillions won't be flowing into the treasury, and that's just as well, because it's the Americans who'll be paying. This is one reason why other countries haven't been imposing tariffs. They don't want to impose that on their own systems. That would be stupid. Anyway, we shall see. Anyway, I don't want to get too political on this, but my concern is that if this continues, then it may be that we're going to be looking at a crisis sooner rather than later. I would prefer to see that pushed back into next year, but I have to say, looking at the last week particularly, I'm really wondering whether people are going to wait that long. I'm thinking that it's just maybe a matter of time before someone does something really stupid. And the thing is, the other reason I'm thinking about next year is because next year I think we're expecting to see something really, really, really stupid. And that is that the Jerome Powell's term of office ends on in May next year, in May 2026. It seems entirely clear that he's not going to be reappointed. The question is, who gets his job? If it's going to be a political appointee, and there's a couple of pretty sad Trump sycophants who've been suggested for the job. If one of them does get the job and just gives Trump whatever rates he wants, that's going to lose a lot of confidence. One of the reasons why the dollar's holding up as well as it is, and the bonds are holding up as well as they are, is because Jerome Powell is there. Once he's gone, then that is another nail in the coffin of the confidence in this government. And I've been showing some of the charts of the days. They're always interesting, but about a quarter of US stocks are owned by foreigners. That's like 15, 16 trillion. About 10 trillion, 9 or 10 trillion of US treasuries are held by foreigners. So that's like 26 trillion of assets, which will be very adversely affected if the dollar starts going down a lot. Just saying, that could, if there is a loss of confidence, because I've said before often that markets run to a significant degree on faith. If that faith is lost, the tide can go out very quickly. And I think we may well be looking at that in the next year or two. And really, looking at the last week or two and then the administration, I'm wondering if we can wait till next year for that. We'll see. Anyway, I'm hoping we can, but I've got concerns that we can't. All right. ZB, we're just kicking around here at the moment. Nothing much to see. Got a nice little support trend line here, but I am wondering whether this might start reversing and start coming back down. I'm wondering whether we could, however, be forming a bull flag here. Next obvious target would be a back test of the monthly pivot at 113.28. The yen. 60-minute sell signal has reached possible near miss target. We've obviously got this very nice looking rising wedge, and the next obvious target within the wedge would obviously be all the way down here at rising wedge support, currently in about the 110.22 area. Now, it doesn't need to reach that all at once, and we don't have an obvious topping pattern here, and this could be a bit of a bull flag forming. But as long as this wedge is holding, that's the obvious next target, so we'll see. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts on that. Okay. Not a lot to see on TYX. Obviously, I think the problem we've got is that Trump is under the impression that the Fed sets interest rates. This is not the case. It's never been the case. Now, it's kind of a convenient fiction, and the Fed likes people to think so because it helps deliver what they want, because obviously the market is largely sustained on faith, and an awful lot of people think the Fed sets interest rates, but they don't. When the Fed cut interest rates last year by 0.5%, we wrote a post and I was talking about the fact that the Fed don't actually control interest rates. And actually, lo and behold, they cut the interest rates, and actually the effective interest rate, which is of course the Treasury yields on the 10-year and 30-year markets, went up 1%. So I said the reason the Fed would be slightly reluctant to cut rates was because when they did that and rates went off actual rates that people are paying, i.e. the yields on the 30-year and 10 years, which is what loans and mortgages get based on. When they head off in the other direction, then of course it lifts the veil and reveals to everyone that they don't actually control interest rates, and they never have. So the thing is, if we get a Trump loyalist going in there and trying to put interest rates down to 1%, and Trump's think that everyone will be able to borrow at 1%, no, because I think if anything, that's likely to shove yields up due to lack of confidence. And the fact is, if you can get 5% by buying a 30-year Treasury, why would you lend itself to someone for less on a long-term loan? If you get on a 10-year, if you can get 4.5%, why would you lend it for anyone for less? The fact is, if the Fed reduces interest rates on that basis, then it's just not going to happen, because actually the Fed doesn't control interest rates, and this is what one of the many things that Trump doesn't understand. All right, looking at TNX. TNX, we've got a little on the hourly chart here. We've got an RSI 14 buy signal, which reached possible near miss target. We had a little head and shoulders that broke down here. We came down, retested this low, which was the first target. Didn't quite make it to the extended target, but there's actually no more business on the downside here. We could go straight up from here. And looking on TLT, where we've got an RSI 14 sell signal, but that's also reached the possible near miss target. We've got very much the same, and we've also got a rising channel here, and it's currently holding the channel support. So I'm thinking we've got a little inflection point here, but if we see TLT, if we see bonds go down here, really any amount, then it'll look like we're topping out here, and while we might retest the high, then the next move on bonds would likely be down. All right, let's have a look at the CL chart. Now CL, the main thing that's been happening on CL obviously is that Trump has now for the second time asked the Saudis to increase production, to cut prices, and the Saudis have obliged. And this has been the story of why we've been going down from 71 to 63. Now, I'm thinking we may well go down considerably more, and I'll show you why on the bigger picture charts, where I've got two scenarios I'm running. Both of them are ultimately quite bullish, and I think that fits. Saudi won't be increasing production forever. If we find there are steps taken to take a lot of the Russian oil out of the market, then that actually could push up prices quite a lot. So watching this with interest, but I'll show you the couple of scenarios. In the short term, HO has been going down. We've got a head and shoulder target, which is basically down here. It retested this low here at 2.2. Currently, no particular reason to think that isn't going to make target. RBOB, Got a flag here. It was a nice flag. It came down, confirmed, and it's breaking down. The target is a retest of this low here at 2.015. So I'm expecting to see that made too. Could we go lower? Yes, I think we could. NG, we are retesting the low here. I was wondering if we were forming an IHS, but we didn't. We came down and retested the low. I would note that we've now got a daily RSI 5 buy signal fix, so I am wondering if we might see a significant rally here. So I'm watching this double bottom. I wouldn't be surprised to see it go down. I've got a compelling looking target in the 2.7 area, and I'd like to see it make that target, but I am weighing the odds as we get down here. We're looking at a double bottom, and I know we've got a daily RSI 5 buy signal fixed. Let's have a look at that. All right, let's look at oil first. Oil, we're down, we're on a daily lower band ride, and this is basically all about Saudi. Could we go lower? Yes, because on the bigger picture, from this high here, which is in 2022, I've got a falling wedge, and that falling wedge has broken up. We had resistance at 200 DMA. We've been coming back, but what I'm thinking is we're likely forming an inverted head and shoulders. Now, could this be an IHS forming? Yes. Basically, we'd need to turn back up about now, but I think chances are this decline has legs, and I'm thinking in terms of seeing a retest this low here at 56.06. I'm also thinking if we retest the low here, then this could just expand the wedge, and then I'd move this trend line at the top, but it won't change the fact, in all probability, that it is a wedge. And this is a decent falling wedge that's formed over 3 years, delivered a big retracement of slightly less than 61.8% of the previous move. So basically, really, unless we could see a breakdown here, but I think what I would normally expect to see here is either we retest the low, we might go a little lower, the wedge might extend a little more, but one way or another, sooner or later, we'll break up from this wedge. And potentially, depending on what the pattern we've formed here, and I've noted that we've already got a potential double bottom here, then we could actually see a move which could take us back over 100. Now, obviously, that's a long way, and maybe we'd only get back to 90 and foul there, but I'm thinking we could go a lot higher. So if we get down to 56 again, I'm thinking that level is likely to be a buy, and I'll be looking out for potential shorter-term buy setups and signals. All right, looking at heating oil, we've got another wedge. Could we be forming an IHS? Yes. Is it a valid double bottom already? Yes. Might it be rejecting back to the low? Yes. And that would be at 1.94. But again, we've got the falling wedge, and again, overall, whichever way it shakes out, likely it will shake out and go considerably higher than we are now. I'm thinking it'll probably retest this low, but in the 1.94 area, I'd be thinking heating oil is a buy. All right, looking at gas oil, we've got another wedge. So you're seeing the theme developing here. And we've also got a potential double bottom here too. So this wedge could go a little lower, but the prospects for going much lower aren't high. That would require a significant break of a longish term pattern, which has been forming for years. I'm not really expecting to see that happen. So I'm thinking that whatever happens here, after we get down to retest these lows, we may well be heading up. All right, looking at natural gas. Now, natural gas, I'm thinking if this isn't the double bottom that broke up, and it sure isn't performing so far, I'm thinking this may well be another rising megaphone, which again could be a bear flag. I'm in two minds about this, because this is an obvious setup to take us back to 1.686. But as I have noted before, we are in a bullish section of the year, and if we look at the futures over the next few months, there is a built-in assumption that between now and January, that we will be going up 1.4 on NG, and that's likely to feed through and deliver on all of the rolls as we roll from month to month. Now, we can nonetheless go down, but that kind of means that whatever we're going down, we also need to go down the 1.4 that it would be going up seasonally in any case. Obviously, that amount goes, if we make a fast move down, then it's easier because, of course, we don't have that cumulative bullish lean that needs to be worked out as well. I am thinking this may well be a rising megaphone. This may well be a bear flag, and it may be looking to get us back to this low, which could set up a very nice looking level bottom. Would I be looking for it to go much lower than that? Well, look at the history. It very rarely goes any lower than that. So I would be looking for a low there. All right. In the short term, I would note that we've got an RSI 5 buy signal fixed, and it's a nice one. But this is the trend line I would like to see made. I've got that in about the 2.65 area, and it's quite nice, and I like it. But I am wondering if it's going to make it. This, obviously, hasn't updated into the EOD chart. We've now come down and retested this low. If we are going to go and see this 2.65, this would be the obvious time to do it. So we shall see how that goes. All right, let's have a look at gold. Now, there was a real oddity here. So I looked into it and I found out what the reason was. We saw this spike up in gold, which took it up to the 3,500 area. And that has come back, but we've got a dissonance because the on the spot price, it's still barely over 3,400. So I was thinking, why is there a difference? And the difference, actually, it turns out, is because that has Trump has put tariffs on gold. So that is the effect of the tariffs. It's very weird having tariffs on gold, but it's not unknown. You have value-added tax on gold here. So, but it's given that the internationally between countries, gold tends to be transferable money. It's kind of odd to have tariffs on it. Particularly as the gold is looking after so much, the US is looking after so much international gold. Again, it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, but it's not a big issue. But that explains why it looked as though it had retested the all-time high, but actually it hasn't. And that is the difference. And that's why the futures are higher, but the spot price is not. All right, looking at SI, I'm still wondering about a possible retest of this high, and that would be a match with going to retest the all-time high on gold if we're going to do that. Oh, the speculation was that this was put on gold in order to make crypto relatively attractive. That could be right. Palladium, we've got a head and shoulders here. We've almost reached the target here. I've got that target down about the 11.15 area. Looking pretty good. We've got a 60-minute buy signal fixed. If we didn't already have one, we'd have another possible one brewing. So I am wondering if we might see some support here. This could, however, if we see a rally here, be the head and shoulders, be the right shoulder on a head and shoulder pattern. On platinum, haven't got the head and shoulder pattern here. We are, however, we had a little double bottom that broke up, and this doesn't look like a double bottom. What this looks like is a bear flag forming, which has now broken down. So I'm leaning towards seeing a retest this low here in the 12.75 area. Looking at HG, this looks like a very, very, you can see, obviously, announcements, tariffs, wild moves. In the meantime, since then, we've had hardly any movement at all. This looks like a little bear flag forming, which in due course will drop a tiny amount and retest this low here. In the short term, we've got a weak 60-minute sell signal fixed, and as far as I'm concerned, it can go and retest that low at any time. All right, let's have a look at metals on the bigger picture. Okay, looking at gold. Gold, this is what I was wondering, because it looks as though the futures has gone over 3,500. Now, if this was a continuous futures chart, then we would have retested the all-time high, but it's not. This is a spot price chart for a precious metal, so it didn't do that. We're still waiting to see, but this still looks like a bullish consolidation, setting up a retest of that high. Looking at silver, obviously we've got decent resistance at 29, but I'd quite like to see a retest of the high. That could set up some very nice negative divergence. Not so much on the daily chart, where we've already got a daily RSI 14 sell signal fixed, but we could set up a decent RSI 5 sell signal on the weekly chart. Looking at palladium, this could this be a bear flag? Maybe. We had a little double bottom here that more or less made target. I am wondering if this might be the start of a move down to come back and retest this low and set up a larger double bottom there. Looking at the weekly chart, we've got a weekly RSI 14 sell signal fixed. No, it's a daily chart. And we had an RSI 5 one as well, but the RSI 5 one's already made target. The daily RSI 14 sell signal hasn't reached target yet. And I am wondering, we never actually quite made it to this megaphone resistance. So I've left the lines in there just in case we actually turn around and get there. Looking at platinum, obviously we reached an obvious trend line level here, and we may be all coming down for it. Could this be a rising wedge bear flag? Potentially, yes. although I'm not calling it as one of those as yet. But I am thinking we may well potentially see a lot more downside. If we were to see a retest of the highs here, we could set up some nice negative divergence on the weekly RSI 14 here. But I'm not thinking that will necessarily happen. Again, we had RSI 14 and RSI 5 sell signals fixed. The RSI 14 sell signal hasn't reached the possible near miss target yet, and I'm expecting it to. All right, looking at copper. Copper, you can see we set up this really nice trend line here. The corresponding trend line to that is here. I'm expecting this, once it has got out of its brain freeze or whatever it's in at the moment, and go down to this target here in about the 3.9 area. And then I'm thinking that might break down and take us lower. Is this a pattern here? We never made it to the resistance trend line. So possibly. But I'm not seeing any firm targets below here. If we came back to this rising support, but it's only a two-touch rising support. So if we came down to this rising support here, that could get us a lot lower. Will we? I don't know. I don't really have a decent topping pattern here. The moves have been very sudden. Obviously, there's been a lot of tariffs volatility, but I am liking this target here, and that's in about, I showed this once in about 4.05 area. I wonder why that's different. I don't know. Hang on, 3.13. Nope, that's it. Okay, well that actually looks as though it's in the 4.05 area, so I'd be treating that as the target. All right, GDX has gone significantly higher, and we almost made it to this trend line, but not quite. Again, looks a little unsatisfactory. No current. Well, we've got a possible RSI 14 sell signal brewing. It's weak. Nothing on the daily chart apart from an old RSI 14 sell signal. Here we did reach the trend line and true in. Not sure I have a lot of confidence in it. What I would say is we've got RSI 5 and RSI 14 sell signals fixed on the hourly chart. On GDXJ, we've got them as well. So short term, I'm expecting to see at least a little bit of retracement. We had a nice bull flag here. It went up, made target, possible level top. I am thinking if when we get back into the retest of the high on gold at 3,500 for real at some point in the not too distant future, I am thinking we might be looking at a big inflection point there, and we might see a consolidation that happening in gold and silver that lasts a while. All right, let's have a look at the other commodities. KC. This looks like a bear flag forming. Might go a bit higher. I'm wondering about this trend line here in the 314 area. We've got a possible 60-minute sell signal brewing. All right, looking at sugar. Sugar, this doesn't look as though it's going to be an IHS. Last Sunday, I was saying that if this was going to be an IHS and break up, then it really needs to do that last week, and it didn't. I'm thinking this isn't an IHS, and the obvious next target is a retest of this low here in about the 15.35 area. Looking at CC, I've actually I rolled this. It turned out the September contracts weren't the right ones on CC and December. It looked as though the volume was with September, but it quickly slipped into December. So I rolled both of those, and that actually started making a lot more sense on the CC chart. CC chart, we'd had failed break up, failed break down, but here, as you can see, we've got a crystal clear inverse head and shoulder pattern, and that's broken up with a target in the 9,000 area. This inspires a lot more confidence, so I was glad I needed to roll this into December because I wasn't making a lot of sense of the prior chart. Does this mean that different futures of the same product can vary quite a bit? Yes, they do. Not usually quite as much as this, but they can vary quite a lot. CT, 60-minute buy signal fixed. I am wondering about a potential double bottom here. So I wouldn't be surprised to see one. We will see. Lumber, we've seen a nice little decline here. We've also reached a potential inverted head and shoulder neckline. I'm wondering about a rally, ideally get up to about 675 to 680 area to form a right shoulder to take it down further. I'm leaning overall bearish on lumber. ZW, wondering about possible downside targets on likely downside targets on wheat and soy, and possible downside targets on corn. I'm still thinking they might well go down from here. We've got a 60-minute sell signal fixed on wheat, but that's only small. Possible IHS forming, which I'm keeping an eye on. On corn, we broke up over declining resistance and then rejected pretty hard off it, so I'm not sure that's actually particularly significant. I'm wondering about a retest of the low, but the main target I was looking for on the downside here with corn has already been reached. Looking at soy, we've got This is not an possible IHS forming, really, I think. Looks like we're going to see a retest of the low, but I have got this overall wedge here suggesting that we might not get significantly lower than that. Looking at soybean oil, we had this double top form, and it's taken a while to get there, but it's pretty much making that target now. We do have a possible head and shoulder neckline that I'm keeping an eye on in the 51.75 area, but not really in any strong expectation that that might form and break down. Live cattle, potential double top here. I'm watching to see if this rising support trend line breaks. Lean hogs, I'm wondering whether this might actually all be a bear flag, but I don't have a decent looking resistance trend line at the moment. We'll have to see. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts as well. And while I'm doing that, sorry, I'm just going to open up the crypto charts. With me a second. All right. Okay, coffee. Coffee, by historical standards, we're still pretty richly valued. Doesn't mean we're going to be going down right now, but I think sooner or later this will revert fully to the mean. Doesn't need to be now, though. I do have a potential megaphone here, and we might be turning up and potentially, although it's a bit of a stretch, get a retest this high here at 4.41. Sugar, we've still got this apocalypse scenario down in the 6.5 to 9 area. In the short term, I'm quite liking a falling wedge here. And on the daily chart, I drew another pattern there, which is a smaller one. We haven't actually reached that support, and I was wondering if we might. But we do have, yeah, it's not an IHS forming here. I'd prefer to see it at least retest the low and set up a double bottom. I'm leaning towards the bull side after that. We've already got a weak RSI 14 buy signal fixed. Nothing likely to develop here at the moment. Cocoa, we've still got on the monthly chart an RSI 14 sell signal fixed, and sooner or later I think this is going to revert to the mean as well, and you can see that mean is still a long way down. Looking at the weekly chart, daily chart, we've got a potential IHS forming here, and actually this one's pretty nice and it's broken up. This is the one I was looking at with the target, which was in a different place. All right, well, I'll be looking at that. But we've got an IHS here which is broken up, and waiting to see whether that will head up towards the target, although it does appear to be different to the target I had on the hourly chart. So, all right, I'll have a look at that before we get to the next one. All right, wheat. Wheat, I'm leaning lower, and I'm really leaning ideally towards seeing a retest this low here at 495.50. We are not far above that. And I'm thinking we might well get that. We will see. Looking at corn, corn has retested this low here at 305. We do have another possibility down here at 307.25, but it's a long, long way down. And there's no particular reason to think it's going to get there. But we do, if we were forming a wedge, I could have a target below, but I'm not really seeing any particular reason to think this would be likely. We have got a possible RSI 5 bicycle brewing on the weekly. On the daily chart, we've got a possible RSI 14 bicycle brewing. And potential bottoming action. These trend lines are just exploring, really. I'm wondering to see if these might hold, but there's no powerful reason to think this would at the moment. Looking at soybeans, soybean, I've been looking at this for the last few months and saying this looks like a flag, and this now looks like a flag, which has broken up slightly over this falling wedge resistance and then broken down with a target at a retest of the low. That low is 93606, and I'm expecting it to be made. So that is a pretty firm target to the downside on soybeans. All right, looking at the daily chart, no current positive divergence, though we could set some up. We'll retest this low here at 960.75. We will see. But really, this flag is broken down. I'm expecting it to make target. And looking at cotton, we've got this huge falling wedge. Did we break up over it here? I don't think we did, no. But that doesn't mean it isn't going to break up. And if we see a short-term low here, I'm thinking we might break up from it then. If so, I'd then have this bottoming out after a pretty impressive move down, where it's more than halved. We've already got a double bottom set up. I think we could be looking at the beginning of a bull run here on cotton. So potentially see a break up over 73.71 and then get us back up to a target in about the 91.92 area, which actually wouldn't be a huge retracement of this wedge down. We will see, but I'm quite liking that. Lumber, I'm feeling the opposite way. I'm thinking this was all a bear flag forming, and it's probably setting up a retest of this low here at 35250. Could that be the second lower double bottom? Yes, but really I'm leaning short. And really with tariffs, with issues with Canadian lumber being used in the US because of tariffs and costs in house building, I think we're going to see a reduction in house building. I think that's going to affect lumber demand, and I think it's going to affect lumber prices. In terms of where we are, we've got a potential level top here actually. If we saw a sustained break below 537.54, then that would have a target in about the 380 area, and I'm thinking that may well deliver. We will see. All right, great. Let's have a look at crypto. So bear with me a moment. Okay, looking at Bitcoin. Bitcoin, we're coming pretty close to a retest of this high here. And this is something I was expecting to see if we saw the breaks up on SPX and the Qs. And I was thinking that while those were retesting the highs, we'd probably see a high retest on Bitcoin as well. And at the moment, that looks like it's delivering. In terms of the flag, this was a flag. This was a bullish underthrow, and the target is a retest of the all-time high. We should see it. No current divergence. I did have a little sell signal here, but it's failed. All right, looking at Solana. Solana, on the daily chart, we're seeing a continued move up. We broke back up over the daily middle band, and this could go higher. Could it get all the way back up into 206.4? Maybe. I'm not seeing anything compelling thing it's going to, but we do have a bigger picture where this is broken up from this rather sloppy IHS with a target in the 283 area, and we could just resume the way up for that. I've been watching Ethereum carefully, and I was expecting to see, and I've been talking for quite a while, and I was expecting to see the IHS make target, and that target was at 4109.05, and it's made it. So that has been done. We're still on a weak RSI 14 sell signal, and this means it's no longer supporting on the upside the Solana IHS. It has made the target here, and that is the end of it. I do have an extended target up here in the 4400 area, and that may well get made. And actually, we've made it almost most of the way to it already. And on the bigger picture, I'm very much wondering, having got all the way back up here, about a retest of the all-time high at 48.65.94, and I would like to see that. So we will see. But you can see the IHS played out like a champ, and that is it done. Slightly concerned that Solana hasn't managed to do better while that's been happening, but we will see. But that's it for Ethereum, and now we see whether it continues up into 48.65.94, and I'm thinking it might well do that. We shall see. All right, great. In that case, I think it's a wrap. Sorry, a slightly long one today, but anyway, I just wanted to talk about the US dollar thing. I know, I may be offending some Trump supporters, but the fact is, he never reads. He surrounds himself with sycophants. When does Trump have an opportunity to learn something new? Does he have an opportunity to learn something new? At the end of the day, if you don't read, you don't listen, you're not going to learn much. And there are an awful lot of things that Trump doesn't know very much about. In terms of running a reserve currency or what the Fed does, all this sort of stuff, these are all areas which are a mystery to him. All right, great. In that case, I think that's a wrap. I'll catch you again on Wednesday. Everyone take care.